everyone, it's raining, it's pouring, it's windy, and still I'm having a good hair day, which never happens with curls in this type of weather, so I'm celebrating by uploading another vlog. So I hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to give you a little tip today, basically just share a tip that I use when I have anxiety from an overload of things to do, which is kind of like often. So I get quite anxious because I've got, a big list of things to do and I'm a perfectionist. So I kind of want to do everything. It's black and white. It's 100%. It's not like halfway. So in my head's very structured. And it's like if I've got 10 things to do and each of those things I have to do to 100%. And I think the overload comes when everything has to happen now, right? So I can't shelve it, or put it in different units of, oh, let's do this then. And this. It's hard to break it down. Then I get anxious. And there's another thing. I feel like sometimes when we get anxious about things to do or decisions we have to make, it's hard to even explain it to somebody else because inside your head, a lot of decisions depend on other decisions. So it's like, oh, I can't really make this decision because that will depend on what happened, on the result of this, what this person says. So there's just an endless list of chores, and they all coincide a lot of times, which creates just a big mush in your head, basically. And in the past, I used to call my best friend, and she used to say, "Have you made a list?" And I remember just getting so frustrated with her and really looking down on the whole suggestion of making a list. I'm like, no, but it's a big mess and I'm all anxious and I don't know what to do and it's not going to help. It's not going to help. Yeah. So I was very adamant that there's no way making a list of things is actually going to help me. And you might be thinking the same thing now. So I'll just walk you through it and just like what happened. So what happened was I was already irritated. I was completely impatient. And kind of losing it. And I was like, no, this is not going to help. There's no way. Maybe what's a stupid list going to help me with? She said, okay, I understand everything's too busy. Just tell me and I will make the list. And of course, that was not a good idea. No, you're not going to get it because it's all, mushed in my head and it's all connected and you won't understand. She said, well, I'm not trying to understand. You're just going to tell me a thing by thing what you have to do. I'm going to put it all down in paper, right, on paper. And then later on, we're just going to go one by one. And if you want, you can explain to me. Or if not, maybe it'll actually just clarify itself to you as we go through it. Whatever. It took a few times. It took some convincing. And eventually, I just went for it. So there was one time. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We went through the whole thing. And then apparently there was a list on her end of the phone line. There was a list. And then, even going through the list and telling her the things, I kept on fighting with it. You know what I mean? Like I kept on battling it and saying, this is not going to help. And she's like, just get through it. So I think the main thing is just to try and maneuver through your own resistance and getting through the list the first time. Having a friend to do it with is just really great. So if you can do it with a friend, if you can ask for help from your partner, if you can call somebody that you love and that are going to be there for you and have 15 minutes to help you, that's the best thing. So then there was a list, okay? And then she was saying, okay, let's go one by one. And she started reading one by one. And to be honest, I think by the time I finished talking about everything that was on my mind, I probably already felt a bit better. But I was not ready to admit that yet. So pride. But then we started going one by one on the list. And she said, okay, we're going to try and shelve these into separate units of time. And I think this is a lot of where the pressure comes down to, is not necessarily the amount of things you have to do, but that pressure sensation of it all has to happen right now. And especially when things coincide and decisions have to be made based on something else, and the end decision has to happen now, then you kind of think like, okay, this whole chain has to happen immediately, without delay. And there's a million other things waiting on in the pipeline. So it's like a system overload. And she's like, okay, this system overload is especially in, it's happening at the end of the pipeline. We're going to go back and check the system and see where the overload is coming from and see which ones we can kind of disperse and kind of spread it, shelve differently, so that you think, okay, maybe, just maybe, that specific thing doesn't actually need to happen now, even though you might feel that it does. Maybe, just maybe, that other thing also doesn't happen to have now. It has to happen now, and then we just shelve it into different days and times that we're going to do it in. I found this to be difficult in the beginning just because of the self-resistance, literally, but very easy once you start going through it, and actually very, very, very helpful. I think the problem is that when you start making those lists, when you need the list is when you are already very, very stressed out. And I think the big tip here, and what we have to learn to do, or at least what helped me, is that the more I did it, the first few times it was a struggle every time. Ask my best friend, she will tell you. It was like, nowhere to go with me in the beginning. But the more I did it, the more I realized how helpful it was. And the other magical thing that happened, apart from helping my anxiety and sort of getting through stuff and sorting the shit out and being able to move on from it and actually be proactive again, the second thing that happened is I learned to acknowledge and recognize when I'm very near to that state. So these days, I have to say, I've become a pro at recognizing when I'm getting to that stage of anxiety. So basically recognizing when, and anxiety comes side by side with depression. A lot of time when I just feel super depressed and my system shuts down and I just want to sit in front of the telly and do nothing. And that's when I think, okay, hold on, like I'm trying to be conscious and aware of the situation. Why is this happening right now? A lot of times the answer is because I'm actually feeling anxious, but I'm trying to shut it down because I don't really know what to do with it. And I also don't really want to share it. A lot of times we're anxious, but we don't really want to bother somebody else with it. And sometimes we don't want to look at it. We don't want to face it. We just want to bury it, So when you bury things, that's what happens. And I've become a lot better at realizing that now that I'm just feeling down, it's because there is something that's making me anxious and I'm not willing to face it, or I'm not in the mood for sharing it. And the first thing I try to do is I try to tell someone. So I turn to my partner and I say, have you got a few minutes for me? It's usually in the state where I'm already irritated. Have you got a few minutes for me? Or I just let him know. I'm like, okay, when we finish work, when you finish doing what you're doing, can you come sit next to me because it's always very dramatic, but it doesn't end up with that much drama eventually. But just calling somebody else to help you out with the mess you've created in your head is always there's a level of uncomfortableness or shame in it, and you kind of, I can't do it by myself, I'm going to call somebody. So that's the first thing you learn how to do. You just learn to ask for help and to tell somebody, I might need help. Maybe the first stage is, like I said before, recognizing it. And then the second stage is just asking somebody for help. And then talking through it is the third bit. And it's, like I said, it can be challenging. You've got to learn how to do it. So it's talking through it, to the person, saying, oh, I got this on my head, I got this on my mind, I got this, blah, blah. Let's make a list. Okay, and the next stage is realizing if I just put all of that down on paper, just like if you're going through something and you write in your journal, but this is a more functional thing when you got chores, you know what I mean? Job related and things like that. So it's like writing in a journal. You just write a list, and then doing the list with somebody always helps rather than by yourself. I can do it by myself, but that's a bit depressing and you're already feeling a bit depressed. So that's my recommendation: is be aware of it. Turn to somebody for help, trust them and go through telling them and going through it, and then make a list either by yourself or with them, and then go through the list and just number it by importance and try to shelve it to different units of time. Okay, this is Wednesday, this is Thursday, and what's the most important thing to do. And I think it'll really help you and do magic. For me, it has. So good luck, and feel free to comment or ask questions if you have any, and I'll try to answer. Have a good day. Bye.